day, America. Stand by for news.
I
used to love all
Paul Rickard.
Paul Harvey. Good day. It's Friday, Brady.
It is Friday. It's been a heck of a week, I'll tell you. Momentous.
I think they already know who I am.
I think so.
Do they know who you are?
Probably.
Let's skip that part.
All right. It's us.
Home of thermonuclear.
Oh, God, I couldn't believe that.
Well, it turns out it was good news.
Yes.
What's happening this week?
You know, it's been kind of crazy. We've been, getting the bench together, all kinds of new stuff here at EVTV. So I've been down the shop a lot doing fun things. There's going to be some stuff I think we're going to have to talk about us a little bit today at some point.
Is that right?
And the fun things that we're doing.
That might be okay. I like to talk about me.
Okay.
I've got a daughter that is enough about you guys. Let's talk about
Let's talk about me.
I found a thing this week. We'll put it up here. It's we've talked about it in the past that Ferdinand Porsche actually came up with the first hybrid
first hybrid, yes.
Automobile, and with wheel motors.
And what was that, the 1890s?
1900.
1900, okay.
1900, 1901.
Okay.
And they had used this in a commercial that we kind of cut in a couple of times that I thought was kind of cool.
It was pretty cool.
Well, apparently they thought it was pretty cool too. They have rebuilt that car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean the car was long gone. It was.
They had to redo it. Yeah.
It wasn't. It was never a Porsche. He worked for a guy named Lohner.
Okay.
Lohner, I think.
Right.
And this was one of his designs when he was a very young man in 1900, working for this other car maker.
Okay, he was just getting his start.
And
wow.
so there is, but they found some drawings and so forth. And they had some photographs, and they knew something about how the car worked, and they have built a replica of it.
That's pretty cool.
For the Porsche Museum.
Okay, for
Let's
the
take
museum.
a look. This is
Stuttgart.
kind of a cool little.
All right.
It's not that good in the curves.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But this is kind of cool to look at. Let's
all right.
take a look. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I am amazed. I went to the 50th anniversary of Porsche at, where they do the Monterey races up at Laguna Seca. And, they emptied out the museum, and that's going to be really cool to be able to see in Stuttgart, that rebuilt electric vehicle. That's going to be really neat.
Go over there and see that. We've got quite a few viewers in Germany and the Netherlands.
We do. We do up
and
there.
We ought to take a trip over there. I'd like to see it. Brian's the Porsche guy. He kind of drugged me into it years ago. He won a Porsche by
in a sales contest.
Yeah, well, in a sort of a sales challenge that I didn't think he could meet. A little side bet. And so I bought
Screwed
him a
him
Porsche.
all up. He
And,
said he'd never be seen dead in one. Now you
Right.
can't get him out of them.
Yeah, I got where I like him, but he's drugged me into that. But they are, the J.D. Power and Associates surveys, Porsche, customer satisfaction, quality. Nobody can touch it.
It's always the highest, yeah.
They're always the highest.
Yep.
So that's that. We're using that Siemens generator that we got from Matt.
Yep.
We've been talking to the Siemens guys. These are, it's kind of like Getrag and Siemens and stuff. They just think we're little and ugly, and our mother dresses us funny.
Yes.
They don't want to
They
do
do.
anything with it. But he did kind of put us onto something. I've kind of been fascinated with this motor. They make a really quality, squared off looking AC motor.
Yeah, their motors are
that's
really good.
water
Yeah.
cooled.
Yes.
And it was used in the Ford Ranger,
Yes.
a little
Yep.
67 kilowatt rated AC three-phase motor, and a great controller that they made. And for a while, you could get those motors on eBay for about $2,000.
Yep. Yep. A couple years ago, even before that, yeah.
The problem was that they had done them for Ford to fit into the differential and used the oil in the differential to lubricate the bearing.
Oh.
So it's kind of an open weak
Yeah,
bearing. If
but-
you got one of the motors, you had to replace the bearing and so forth. And there wasn't any controller for it, and so
Yeah, that was
it
really the
just
problem,
Was
yeah.
kind of a problem. I think one or two guys got them going, but they're a neat motor.
Quality, yeah.
They're apparently they have a 300 volt version of this floating around out there, according to Matt, and that's going to be a little higher gauge wire.
Right.
Carry a little more
A
current.
little more current, yeah.
Most of their motors are up like that generator, 650 volts.
Yeah,
it's only 300 amp.
Yeah.
It'll do a lot of power, but not a lot of current, and that just doesn't work for our cars.
Yeah, how do you carry that around in a car?
Well,
650 volts.
yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
And then all our ancillary equipment.
Yeah,
our
exactly.
DC converters and stuff.
Yeah,
don't work.
it really is an issue.
It just kind of gets to be a mess. Anyway, there's a 300 volt version, a new version of this 67 kilowatt frame floating around.
So you
out
got
there.
it flopping around, huh?
And he finally told us where. Azure Dynamics is, they're the ones doing that Ford Transit Connect.
Oh, the van? That
The
kind of
van with
mid-sized
the
van?
wedgy looking nose.
Yep.
Mhm. Yeah, I'll put a photo of that up there. We'll
Yeah.
dig one up. Well, they're in production with that.
Oh,
You can
okay.
get those.
Really?
They mostly sell them, commercially to companies for, FedEx deliveries or, kind of a.
Right.
It's not a real plush.
Yeah,
thing
I've seen
for
a few of them
personal
around. They're kind of
vehicle, but-
Spartan. Yeah, no windows usually, and yeah.
But apparently they're trading in that motor and
Okay.
and do their. Of course, they had their DMOC controller that they were using with an elevator motor before that I didn't think much of. But I don't know what the real. I haven't actually used that controller, but it might work very well with kind of an
Yep.
updated 67 kilowatt.
With new motors.
Siemens frame.
Yep, exactly.
And so that's kind of interesting. There's some secret stuff going on out there with some of our vendors on AC motors.
Oh, yes.
And of course, we're up to 650 amps with the HP EVS
Right,
now.
with our Curtis controller, yeah.
And looking for higher voltages, it tops out at about 130 volts. So I think some interesting things happening on the AC side this year.
I think so.
Of course, last week we thought we'd blown up the transmission.
Yeah, when I listened to it, boy, I'll tell you, I was hearing noise in the transmission, but I'm not an automatic transmission guy either. So
Well,
I don't know why you were listening to
you
me.
blew that call. Who else would I listen to? I thought you knew what you were talking
It was like the end of the basketball game when the refs made the wrong call last night.
Let's go take a look at the bench and see what's going on there.
Okay.
And, update that. It's a little surprising, and things aren't quite as bad as they were. This episode of EVTV is brought to you by the Winston Battery Company Limited. makers of high-capacity lithium-yttrium rare earth cells, including the popular 160 amp-hour model featuring cycle lives in excess of 5,000 cycles when discharged to 70%, the longest useful working life of any available battery of any chemistry. A leading battery technology scientist, inventor, and entrepreneur since 1995, Mr. Winston Chung envisions a new world of clean electric power for the dawn of a new era of electric vehicles. For your next electric vehicle design project, contact Winston Battery Limited. Energy for a bright future. I wanted to take just a minute to, since we had it open, playing with these blowers, show you some of the aspects of this motor that you often don't get to see, and most notably these brushes. You have two here, two here, two here, and two here for 8 brushes total. These are these Hellwig, they call them red top because they have a little red top here, and they're split brushes. Now when we say brush, this isn't like a paintbrush. They're carbon blocks. And this carbon block rides on the round commutator surface. When George is talking about seating, and that's why I've got this out, is to take a look at that, we can see whether the entire surface of the brush has taken on the radius of that commutator evenly. And we've got a few streaks in here, but basically it's all the same degree of shine. And so they've seated pretty well. Jim had promised to seat them as part of the process, and it looks like he did it. They're held in place with these springs in here. This one is the new style brush, the Hellwigs red tops, and they're a split brush. Normally the brush is this size. In this case, I can actually open it up. It's in 2 pieces. And the pieces are each about the width of one of the commutator bars. And so when it rides from one to the next, one half of the brush might unseat on the bar, and the other half not. And so it makes a closer contact with the commutator without bouncing completely off of it, which is what causes arcing. And that's why we can do these higher voltages. We'll probably do this at 192 volts like we did the Speedster Redux. In the past, the recommendation for net gain motors has been a maximum of 170 volts, and you probably want to avoid that to avoid arcing. You probably want to observe that to avoid arcing if you have the old style brushes. But this is what they're coming with now, is the Hellwig red tops, and the manufacturer is pretty sure they can handle higher voltages. We haven't had any problem with Redux, and I kind of see why. The brush really doesn't lose contact with the commutator when it goes over the little mica insulator between one bar and the next. One half of the brush may come loose, but the other half won't. And so it's a neat design. We'll show you in the motor here, but it's held in place with a little coil spring and rides on that commutator. The commutator is the disadvantage of the series DC motor. Understand that in all the developments from the Tesla motor on, there's a number of advantages. Torque at low RPMs isn't any of them. There are no motors that will make more torque than a DC series motor. But the disadvantage is you have this commutator and these wear items. These brushes could conceivably have to be replaced. In the past, they've said 50, 80,000 miles. Again, Hellwig's claiming extended life for these brushes, so maybe 100,000 miles. But that's not much of a rebuild. Drive your car 100,000 miles, pull this little spring, pull this out, and it simply attaches to this bar with a screw. And you can get a set of these brushes. I don't know what these are, about $115 or so. And you've pretty much got got your motor redone, a lot of times if you've got it pulled out of the vehicle anyway, you're going to change the bearings and clean it up a little bit and check it out, have it rebuilt. But for a quick brush change, that may perk up a sagging car.
NetGain Motors, home of the Warp, Transwarp, and Impulse motors, introduced the improved Warp 9 motor. The Warp 9 is a 9 1/4 diameter series wound DC motor with a double-ended shaft featuring 26 improvements for 2010. Externally, the terminal studs have been enlarged from 3/8 to 1/2 inch diameter. Bigger is better. On the inside, a larger commutator, new brush composition, and split brush design with heavier springs handle even higher voltages and currents than before. Our new fan increases airflow by almost 50% over typical paddle-style fans, and all this translates into improved performance. For even more performance or larger applications, take a look at NetGain's Warp 11 motor, an 11 3/4 diameter series wound DC motor for even greater torque and power. Since 2002, NetGain Motors has been leading the EV industry with precision, performance, and price. Visit us at go-ev.com. NetGain Motors, warp power to go.
Hey, here we are at the infamous test bench.
Well, we've swept up the ash
Right.
from our explosion. And
There was a little radioactive fallout. Actually, it wasn't what we thought. Brain listened to the transmission. That's where he was hearing it. That wasn't the problem, was it?
No, it sure wasn't.
You took the yoke off and you couldn't turn the generator.
No, yeah, as soon as I slipped this yoke back, you couldn't turn the generator by hand, couldn't do anything with it. So I was
And
like,
what was causing that?
well, I was wondering if it was something in the generator. So, that's your first thought. But no, as soon as I disconnect the 3 phases from the rectifier, it free spun, no problem.
Go! What's your sole purpose in this army?
To do whatever you tell me, drill sergeant.
God damn it, Gump! You're a goddamn genius. That's the most outstanding answer I've ever heard. You must have a goddamn IQ of 160. You are goddamn gifted, Private Gump.
So it turned out to be the 3-phase rectifier.
Ended up being
I got this. I don't understand this. I got this the finest that money can buy
Yeah?
through eBay.
eBay.
Hong Kong.
You buy something off eBay?
Yeah.
No way.
Power semiconductor electronic. It was supposed to be a 300 amp, 1200 volt unit, all with a built-in heatsink.
For sure.
I thought it looked cool. I
Yeah,
still like
yeah.
the heatsink. I guess we'll dig this stuff out of here and use it for something else. But I like the big tabs and so forth. So we're back to our 2 little PowerX 75 amp units, kind of in parallel with a bunch of wires. This had simplified our wiring, but that's what went out on the bench.
And it just pretty much put full generator load that it could.
I've been teary all week.
Yeah?
Yes, I've heard from hundreds of people concerned for my safety.
Oh, they care about you, Jack.
You know, it's like our whole viewership apparently are Q&A quality assurance safety inspectors. I pictured most of them being design engineers or at least hobby, garage. But no, they're all QA guys.
All right,
And I never did like QA guys. A necessary evil, but God. So we're back in operation. Things have come along. We noted some anomalies we were having last time. And Sebastien Bourgeois and Jeff Jenkins of Avnetics were very helpful. The biggest thing was the tachometer.
Okay.
Jeff initially suggested a 3K pull-up resistor on the tach input. I tried that, not much of a change. That's where you connect the 3K resistor between one of our tach inputs and 12 volts. And so it'll have 12 volts on it most of the time, and then that magnetic pickup pulls it down to ground with each pulse.
Okay.
And there is about a 10K resistor in the thing from Recharge Car. He had been recommending this thing. Now he's saying they're having some difficulties with it. But in any event, the 3K didn't do much for us.
Didn't do nothing. Okay.
He had another suggestion, though, and that was that we go to this collar from Recharge Car has 4 set screws on it. They're actually the magnets. We're probably not going to be able to use this system anyway because it's just not going to fit. We're going to have to go back to the thing Brian and I were used to use, a magnetic pickup and a couple of magnets glued on to our probably our reluctor ring and a little bracket or something that'll be out on the end here. But in the meantime, I followed Mr. Jenkins' instructions, went to 2 pulses, and that required us to change our configuration on our tachometer and yours in your transmission.
Yeah.
But it all worked. And now the transmission software shows our RPM. We've got more RPM indications than anything. Our tachometer shows our RPM indication. This was to check and see, get all this going. And we won't need this anymore. We've got 3 good indications. And the log program for the Soliton 1 indicates RPM. And so we're going pretty good. The other one was more interesting. We kind of took umbrage at the possibility that we had to blip the accelerator to put it into idle.
Yeah, that was goofy.
It was goofy.
Yeah.
Well, it was goofy a long time ago, apparently. They already fixed it.
Oh, okay.
These guys are doing some good work and adding some features pretty quickly. But they don't do their documentation very well. I went through all the book and everything, and there just wasn't any help for it. Well, then they told me they do have a function for this.
Top secret.
It's top secret, but they do have it.
All right.
We wired a 12 volt to input number 1, and in the configuration selected the start function.
Okay.
And now if we turn on the 12 volts to the Solitons and let them get through the pre-charge sequence, and you have to do that, if you press the button, which I've got a momentary contact button we've added here, and that applies 12 volts to start, it will turn it up, and it will then assume the RPM.
Okay, right.
And idle. And we've got it set up where only this one idles, and that's working very well,
Yes,
and
it
they
is.
seem to be working in tandem very well.
Very well. Yeah,
And-
this other
and
one's
the
picking
2
up
motors are.
right where they're...
No real vibrations or anything. And so that's, I'm pretty pleased with that. There was an anomaly with that, and they did caution me on this. They didn't really say what it meant, but if you have enough idle current set, and I had it set at like, I don't know, 50 amps or something, 100 amps, and I had to raise that to 275, I think, and because of the initial current to turn up to 11-inch motors, possibly with a load on it.
Yeah, transmission and everything getting going. Yeah.
Then you have to have that set high enough. Once I did that, that worked pretty well. Let's talk about our welding techniques, Matt.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
We're not going to talk about that? Okay, let's don't talk about that. Let's talk about this device. We are struggling for millimeters on length. And this is actually a nice aluminum case, but used Garrett turbocharger. There is a gentleman named Dan Coughlin in Fremont, Nebraska. And Dan has got a little website called XS Turbos. XS Turbos.
Okay.
But he's also on eBay, and he takes off the exhaust wheel off the used Garrett supercharger or turbocharger and puts a little electric motor on it.
Right, right.
And then puts K&R air filter on the input to it, which fits remarkably well. And I ordered some of these with some trepidation. He's charging $350 for these.
Now, what is he selling for? What do people use these for normally?
Well, turbochargers
And
on Hondas and things.
You just put it right to the intake and it's electric powered.
No. Normally there's a wheel here.
Right. No, I know normally it's a turbo. I understand that.
But people are buying them as
right
electric turbos.
Okay.
Electric superchargers.
Okay.
And putting them on cars that don't have superchargers. Instead of turning off of exhaust gas or turning off a belt, this will do about 450 cubic feet a minute. Couple PSI is all of air into your carburetor to
Probably give you a little boost.
it'll give you some boost, and of course you can do it with a switch. It runs on 12 volts. And that's what they're doing. They're selling them on eBay. I think $359 a piece. That's, I've bought electric motors that didn't cost as much as these two used turbochargers. In fighting for millimeters, Jim Husted put these two motors together, and we're the ones driving this, and took the fans out of them. And so we have to provide cooling air to these motors.
Right.
It just has to be so. So he made us these little shrouds. Unfortunately, he made it made them a very light metal, I guess, so he could band them around here tightly. But the little collar on this one came completely loose the first time we looked at it.
Right.
And I was quite disappointed in this. Matt pulled out our TIG welder or MIG welder? MIG, and did some of his artwork on it.
I did a sorry attempt to weld that back on. It was pretty thin metal, and it was by the time I had
it was too thin to weld.
About the time I had the welder figured out, I had already put a couple holes in it. And
I
patched
told
them
you,
up.
I think Jim JB welded that in there. I don't think
right,
that was
all right.
welded. We're going to take a piece of aluminum and a Volkswagen
I will
air
say,
duct.
it isn't going to go anywhere. It just doesn't look too pretty.
Yeah, it's like we say, paint it black.
And did you notice how much black I put on it? Trying to hide it.
We tried another unit. Where did we put that other blower?
This one over here.
Yeah, it's right there.
Boy.
This is somewhat more compact, a small fan, and a rubber coupling. It's really quite homemade bands and so forth.
And the fan blade looked real bad. You know, it looked like they took a piece of aluminum.
But it makes kind of a compact thing. The problem is this one was too powerful. Number one, it surged to 25 amps when we turned it on, and then dropped down to 20. This thing was using 20 amps at 12 volt, 120 watts, and sounded like a vacuum cleaner.
Oh God, it was loud.
Now it put out air,
Yeah.
probably more than these do, but more than we needed.
Okay.
And it was a fairly compact thing, but sort of a homemade looking thing with plumbing parts and so forth, so I wasn't too keen on it anyway. We got these. They put out plenty of air for our purposes. You don't need a tremendous amount of air through these motors, but you do need some, and it makes a big difference.
So it kind of seems like as long as you keep the metal cool, don't let it get hot,
Right.
then it's not a problem. But if it's hot and you're trying to cool that down, then it
Right,
can be an
right,
issue.
then it's an issue. So
Okay.
that's why. Now, this is actually going to be better than having the fans in the motor. Why
Right.
would that be?
Right, because those fans, well, at idle, they're not pushing much air.
Right. At
probably.
low RPMs, we don't have any airflow. And guess when we need to get rid of some heat?
At idle.
High currents and low RPMs.
Yeah.
And so this system will actually work a lot better. Incredibly, when we put this on here, this is a 2-inch fitting on the shroud, and it happens to be a 2-inch fitting on this. And we can just
Just
kind of
press
work
fit
it
on
on
it,
here
yeah.
for our test bench. In the car, of course, we'll pilot a couple of very small holes and put a couple of my favorite pieces of hardware.
Auto perforante.
Auto perforentes, yes.
I kind of like them now too. I use a lot of them.
You shouldn't use those for anything, but I do.
They're cheap screws.
They're cheap,
and
and it just goes in and you walk away.
You walk
And
away.
it doesn't hold anything, but it gives you a nice warm feeling.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have these two turbochargers now, and we'll let me. One of the nice things about a 12-volt panel is we can check our budget.
Yeah.
Things add up. We already have some efficiency problems through a automatic transmission with an idle, and now we're going to add some more by using energy to cool the motors. I've got this labeled blower, and I can flip this on with the two of them in parallel. I surge up to
It went up to 20 there.
20 amps, but it immediately settles to 8 amperes.
That's amazing.
And
yeah.
that's about, at 12 volts, that'd be 96 watts. So about 100 watts at our voltage. And so that's not too bad. It's
And they're pretty quiet. They're not bad.
They make a noise, but it's a quiet enough noise, I think, in the engine compartment. If we're sitting in the passenger compartment, it'll be pretty bearable.
Yep.
When shooting television, it's kind of annoying.
Everything's out in the open. Yeah.
Right. So, but that's our turbos, and so we've got a new. Actually, the old
We started with that one. We
three-phase
this
rectifier.
one came in and we said,
I
let's
thought
throw
this
that on.
was an improvement.
Well, it
It's,
should have been. It was double the amps.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah.
We've got our Solitons to where we do have a start button.
Yep.
And I'm hopeful that we can get in the books and find out where the start signal to the ECU derives.
Well, the good thing is there's a solenoid on the starter, so that just takes a there's a wire that goes right to the solenoid on the starter, and that's your start signal right there.
Huh.
It's really easy to tap right off of that one.
We ought to be able to grab that then
No problem at all. Yeah.
and use that as our momentary 12 volts to the one Soliton on the forward motor, and that'll get us started and get us idling.
Yeah.
Again, in the normal fashion you would expect in the car.
Masterflux proudly presents the Sierra Series brushless DC variable speed electric compressors. The Masterflux family of compressors are up to 40% smaller and lighter than competing belt-driven DC automotive compressors. Masterflux uses rare earth neodymium magnets for longer life and greater efficiency. The robust rotary design is ideally suited for rugged EV applications. With a scroll-type compressor, the process begins with refrigerant entering the evaporator from the suction side. Refrigerant then travels through a reed valve to the top of the compressor, where it is compressed at up to 8 times the incoming pressure before exiting out the discharge tube to the condenser. Masterflux compressors are available in 400 to 15,000 BTU per hour capacity range for multiple refrigerants, including 134A. Output can be manually adjusted using a simple 0 to 5 volt pot. Masterflux compressors are available to handle input voltages of 12 to 420 volts DC and come with a specific BLDC motor controller for each voltage range. The new Masterflux 2011 product catalog can be downloaded from their website at www.masterflux.com. Masterflux products are available in the US from Revolt Custom Electric Vehicles, in Australia from EV Works, and in South Asia from EV World. Masterflux, the technically elegant choice for powerful electric air conditioning.
We have a very interesting transmission
Yeah, we do.
with a programmable controller. What do you got here, buddy?
Very programmable. This thing is great. It's been very easy software. I haven't had to deal with any serial port USB problems from the first time I hooked this up. Ran the driver software, installed it. It's been working. I have no problem with communications. As soon as I turn the power onto it, I click communicate, and it just goes right in.
Well, you've got a nice little display here with gauges for speed,
It tells us what gear,
RPM.
what gear we're in on the transmission shaft itself.
I see you've made some additions to our control panel, which is quickly Probably people are wanting
it
to
is.
move that over.
And-
We'll probably just add a second and third one as we keep adding switches and dials. And then another
we might
bench.
have to. When we put our transmission in drive right now, it'll just kind of take off. It'll just, it'll be in 6th gear before you know it. We don't have enough of a load there, so it just wants to upshift. So what our paddle shifters, when we plug those in, that is one issue that we've had since we got this going. The paddle shifters threw off a little spark when we plugged everything in,
And they weren't even plugged into anything.
all they had was 12 volts going into them, and they're wireless.
This is the EMI thing. We had them on the bench here, fired up the generator, and the paddle shifter went up in
And
flames.
To see a spark way back there, we thought for sure it was something off the
What have
generator.
you got it plugged into?
All we had was 12 volts, and the rest is wireless. Yeah. So we did see a little spark off the back of that. So our paddle shifters are being warranted right now. He's going to take care of us on that.
Good.
But until then, this is what we have for manual shift. So if we leave this in the neutral position here, it'll just go through the gears and drive. But if we flip this up, we can manually shift up or down.
So blue is to a higher gear.
Blue is up, blue for sky, red. We only had a red. I don't know what red's for.
And if we put this down, we're back in automatic or something.
Exactly.
Okay, good. I like that. I like that better than the paddle shifter.
Yeah. Well, a little easier
For our,
right
for our
there.
purposes on the bench.
Yeah. No, he's got a great display. It shows everything, transmission temperature. We even got voltage here.
I'm falling in love with that transmission. We're still back and forth on whether to use the 6L80E, it's in there, or this one. There's some advantages to this. Matt, but me neither, don't really have all the configuration parameters quite down tight here as far as torque converter lockup and
Yeah, torque converter lock is
speedometer,
a little bit off.
tire
And
size. I'm not sure we got that right.
Yeah. We couldn't find any good rims for the bench
Shift
yet.
points and so forth, but you can set all these things. It's
Oh,
just a little bit of a learning curve. It's like any configuration program. So we can configure that controller, and after that, you unplug that laptop and
Never have to
put it in the car, and that's what it'll do.
Yeah.
And so this TCI's got a neat product.
Very
here.
impressed with it. Yeah, I've been very impressed with this system.
I was kind of disappointed when we lost the transmission until I found out we didn't lose it at all. And now we have it working where we can shift it and we know what it's doing. We can see it on the screen. That's well. Let's fire up some of this.
Okay.
They want to see me stand right in front of the U-joint. They said
That's the safest place.
that's the safest place. I'm going to turn on our bilge pump, our blower, our transmission. We don't really need the fan on the electric cooling.
No.
Our electronics. Go ahead and turn on our load.
Okay, and that's how easy. Now the transmission's communicating.
Okay.
I'll go over there and I'll put it in drive for you when you're ready.
All right, why don't you go ahead and do that? I'm going to bring up the EVCCON program
Okay.
so we can see what that's doing. I'm monitoring the this EVCCON, which corresponds to that motor. Both of our blowers going.
Yep, both. You are in park now. I'll let you get up to idle and put it in drive.
Okay. We're at about 140 volts.
Okay.
I've got 12.5 volts here. I'm going to turn on my contactor relay and my ignition, 12 volts to the EVCCONs. I'll go through their pre-charge and I can hear it. Now on the this one, I get a green light and no red light. On this one, I get a flashing green and I have a red light. And I thought that was a problem until I push this button. And
there
we
we
fire up, it overshoots a little bit and then settles in. I have our idle set now, instead of for 800 RPM, for 650.
Still a little off there, isn't it?
So it's still off about 100.
Okay.
But I'm very pleased with this PID algorithm that they use as far as maintaining the idle in various load conditions and not getting carried away seeking it.
And so
It wanders around a little bit. I'm showing 550 on the Silicon.
okay.
I guess 500 here. It's not got very good definition. I can take our little Nico gun on the white spot on the end of our. I'm showing 542, 541. Jeff also wanted me to do this from 6 inches instead of 6 feet. I don't really know what that 548. That's at 6 inches, Jeff. Here's at 6 feet. 565. 569. 543. So
Close enough for government work.
it's close enough for government work. I'm showing 560 over here, 546. If I bring it up a little bit.
You ready?
Yeah, are you in anything interesting?
That's drive there.
There's
We'll,
drive. This is where the parts come to get me.
And we'll switch on this manual mode so we don't get out of first, huh? What do you think of that?
Okay,
Yeah.
switch it into
Let
manual.
me just switch over here for just a
Yeah,
second.
bring your program up.
Okay, you're good. It's in first now.
And here we have our RPM, our speed. I can read the engine RPM, turbine RPM, shaft RPM, vehicle speed, and a bunch of other things. And we're in first gear
Uh-huh.
and drive. And I can press this, and we go to second gear
Yep.
and third gear. And the red one, I can get right back down to first. My load's varying, but my RPM is really pretty stable. I'm quite pleased with how they did that idle with EVTV.
Well, and that's great for what we're doing. Our air conditioner is going to put a bigger load on it. It'll keep that RPM right
That'll
where we
kick
need to be.
in and out. We're going to have our steering pump pretty much all the time.
Right.
It'll
But you know,
vary-
when you
it'll vary a little
steer
bit
it,
when
we
you
hit the
steer,
brakes. Yeah, that'll drop it down a little bit.
And so that's have not used a controller with an idle function on it before.
No.
And to my knowledge, EVTV is the only one that has one.
Okay.
I have not seen this on other controllers.
All right.
And I think it's, but you don't normally use automatic transmissions. So we're plowing some new ground here.
Yeah.
And of course, using two controllers with two motors is a little bit of a new thing for me anyway. And so I wanted to have it on this bench and be able to play with it and get it all configured before we dropped her into the
And we've learned. Look how much we've learned
Yes.
since it's been here on this bench. Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
we're
it's-
learning every day
Yep.
on the configurations and, like I say, on the startup, even on the Soliton, the Tacon.
Right. Right.
We're getting there. The let me bring it up a little bit here.
Okay.
My throttle. And Matt and I are both going to get right in front of this U-joint.
And smile pretty.
We're not going to do any high power testing with it this way. If we get to that, we'll anchor the tables. Probably would put on a scatter shield.
Yeah. You know, our benches are really holding up very well for them not being bolted together yet, but they will be.
Well, try over the fan noise to tell them we did do another addition I forgot to mention.
Yep.
And that's a little isolation on the shaft end of the transmission.
Yeah, right here. We, you know, the transmission was kind of sitting out there. You know, there was nothing really supporting the end of it. So, you know, that was kind of adding to our vibration there a little bit. But, yeah, just made a little aluminum mount. Bent some tabs over the side for strength.
So that isolates it, but still leaves a little spring in the step there
Yeah, there's a little bit.
to dampen it.
Yep.
The current in the Silicon, I'm told, is not battery current. It's motor current.
Okay.
And to get battery current, you would have to multiply it by your duty cycle on your PWM, and that was the disparity between the current in and the other one. Now I have to note, of course, this is a 1,000 amp meter, but I've got nothing here. We're not really using much in the way of current. Cranking along at 1,000 RPM in first gear with the generator on. Of course, the generator at that RPM isn't really generating anything.
So, I mean, we're at
not much of a load going on.
Yeah, we're at 1,000 RPM. First gear in this transmission is like 298 to 1, 2.98, so it's basically 3 to 1.
If I go to second gear, keep it at 1,000 RPM.
Yep, and if you maybe one more up, we could probably see some amps out of this generator.
All right, I'll put it in third.
And it spiked up a little bit. This is just barely off of 0 now.
Well, we're still not doing much here.
Okay.
But
we could always hit
crank
one.
her up to 1,500 or so.
Okay.
That'll give them a thrill.
We're about 24 amps over here.
And I'm about 60 here. What we found is actually in almost any gear.
Yep.
And at any RPM where we register some current, that our output current is right at 60% of our input current.
And that's a very interesting thing, because we've always talked about driving down the highway in overdrive or a direct gear, but it's too hard on the road to see if there's a difference.
And there really isn't much
And from what we're seeing here, overdrive to regular drive, there's not an efficiency gain. So
now that's goes to the efficiency of our controller, the efficiency of our motors,
right,
not counting the blowers,
right,
the efficiency of the transmission, the coupler, the generator, and then a bridge rectifier,
right,
which is mostly heat sink.
Yeah.
And we're still right at about 60%. Now this is why perpetual motion doesn't work.
We almost had it though.
And
we'll keep trying.
But also a substantial amount of that, I would say, is in the generator and the even the bridge rectifier.
Now, that doesn't sound all that bad to me. 40% loss through everything that we have here, that doesn't sound too bad.
I think we can be in the 70s instead of the 60s.
Without the generator?
Without the generator.
Okay.
Thing. And they often tout, that electric motors are 90% efficient. Well, in the lab, some of them are. In the real world, it's more like 82-84%.
Okay.
The controllers, similar thing. There are some losses. That's why we're pumping water through it.
Right.
To do the cooling. The same with the motor. The same with the transmission. We have another cooler on that. And the transmission is going to pose some efficiency loss over, for example, a direct drive. So why do I want a transmission? This question comes up with every episode.
Well, you're looking for a little bit of a buffer of your big motors. I mean, we're putting down a lot of torque, a lot of power. We've proven with the Mini Cooper, the input shaft of that just flat twisting, tool steel.
The other aspect of that is that electric motors do have a wide torque band,
right?
But it's not unlimited.
Yeah.
We really have very low efficiency below 1,000 RPM. And we have a rapidly falling torque curve after 3.5, 4,000 RPM. And that's on every motor I've tested.
Okay.
Including the AC motors. Now they indicate that they'll do 9,000 RPM or 11,000 RPM. That's because they have no commutator. They won't turn into a hand grenade. They're not a Claymore landmine.
Right.
at 9,000 RPM.
But they still
they're
stopped
not
at
making
4.
out any more torque than these do.
Okay.
And they really don't have a longer torque curve.
So like an AC propulsion system, they're still falling off around 4?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll do 9 or 11,000 RPM,
Right.
but they got no. So the 0 to 60 is very good. Check them on the 60 to 100.
Right. Right.
On a direct drive, it's not very good. I like having the leverage of a transmission. Heretofore, a manual transmission. And even gearing of that has been problematical for us. But if you have a car like the Mini Cooper with 6 gears, I've got plenty to pick from.
Right. And one benefit, you have all these advantages that you're talking about, and then we have torque converter lockup. And torque converter lockup is no different than a manual transmission with the clutch disengaged or engaged. You know, I mean, it's going to be direct drive.
In this case, this vehicle comes with an automatic transmission. But with the batteries we're going to use, this vehicle, in order to get up around 100-mile range, I have to haul so many batteries.
Right.
This is going to be 8,200 pounds. Now, I've got enough controller and motor here to do 600 kilowatts of power.
Right.
Which is 750 or 800 horsepower. Then we're not going to do that.
Right.
Because I'm not going to run them at 300 volts.
Right.
Probably 192. Realistically, we'll have 150 kilowatts out of each of these for a 300 kilowatt total where we need it.
Right. We were about 400 before. What's that put us about 400 there?
Yes,
Yeah.
and the original L1 engine in this is 403 horsepower.
Okay. Right.
And it's at a specific RPM. This will duplicate that power level, but it'll be over a much wider range. Here's where the best laid plans of mice and men go after glay. And people don't think about this, but it takes a certain time period to ramp up an internal combustion engine
Right.
to that horsepower level. It's built into the game.
Right.
There's just a certain amount of inertia in the pistons and the crankshaft and the fuel flow to get that up to, what is it on the L1, the 4,200 or something is the RPM where the horsepower is at.
Yeah, probably around in there. Yeah.
So it's going to take some portion of a second to get there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that might not be long, 200, 300 milliseconds. An electric motor, if we set the slew rate right and jam on the gas pedal just right, we can apply 400 horsepower in 12 milliseconds.
Right.
Maybe 8. And it liquefies metal. Not because it's so much, because it's so right now.
And we really, you know, with the Escalade, we're all-wheel drive. We got all 4 tires going to the pavement, so we're not going to probably spin the tires. So I mean, it's going to break something if you put that kind of power to it.
It almost at such a sudden application of power, it really doesn't break it. It actually turns it into a gel. And what you'll see when you see people that have done this with an electric car is it's like a piece of wire that's been, this is a shaft, tool steel, an inch, that looks like
spaghetti.
Somebody tangled up a coat hanger. And it's the time zone. So to keep me from doing something stupid, now we have some slew rates I can set in the Soliton. And of course we have a throttle with a range. And you know, I could drive like a responsible normal person. But now we have you on staff, and Brian's a little lead-footed. But worse, here's what happens, is we have anomalies. Things that happen with the controller, the throttle, and so forth, where we've had, you know, the motor take off on us, the controller take off on us in a sudden event. and I'm not confident that I can prevent those. With an automatic transmission, I can't really break anything.
No.
I mean, I could, but I've got plenty of power. But I've got, this is an elastic coupler on a grand scale. It's the same as our Lovejoy. This little coupler has jaws, and it's very strong, and it's tool steel. But it's actually coupled with this polyurethane spider. And the purpose of this is to transmit the power, and it has a little give in it.
Vibration dampening as well.
It is, but when you turn it, and this is used primarily for electric motors, it gives a little bit in the process of turning this. And that's actually somewhat important. Now, the cars we've done up to this point, we don't have that. We have a solid coupler, but it goes to a flywheel.
Right.
And that has a clutch on it.
Yep.
And if you did something very sudden to that, you could slip the clutch. In fact, we burned up the clutch on the Mini Cooper. Of course, we also twisted the coupler. But you have something with a little bit of give in it. A direct drive system does not necessarily have that.
Right.
And I have not done a direct drive, and it would be unlikely that I would. It does not make sense to me. I like to have gear ratios for leverage. I can use a smaller motor to move a bigger car when I have that leverage. When you talk about a direct drive on something like the Speedster, I have to be 150 kilowatts.
Right.
With a 4-speed gearbox, 50 kilowatts will move the car very nicely.
Very nicely.
Actually.
Yeah, they feel great.
I actually like maybe a little better than Redux.
Okay.
It doesn't have the power, but it's just a little more elegant, a little more balanced.
Okay.
For my taste.
Okay.
Now, you and Brian are not going to like it better.
Yeah.
But I do.
Yeah.
It feels light, agile, and everything's in balance.
I got to tell you guys, Redux has a good pull. That car's running good now.
Well, you're down to a 9-second 0 to 60. Now, that's not impressive to a lot of you, but this frame of this car it's never going to do you'd have to overpower it so badly to do the 4-second 0 to 60 or even the 6-second. It's a 1957 design, and I
a bathtub on wheels.
It feels very good. At 9 seconds. So that's the book on direct drive and what we're doing with the automatic transmission. And this is a new area for me. I've not done one with an automatic transmission. And so we've got a test bench. But the bottom line is we have some efficiency losses. Let's go through some gears, I guess. Okay. There's the 4th gear, the 5th gear, and the 6th gear. And that takes me down to 800 or so. Let's crank her up a little bit.
All right. So you're making 80 amps there.
We're gonna crank this up to about 200 amperes.
Okay.
Going in.
So I'd say about 110 over here.
Read it again. Should have 120.
Yeah, I'm still seeing 110
that
now. Yeah.
About 110. So that's 55%
Okay.
in 6th gear at 1,000 RPM. Here's my 200 amps.
Yeah.
I've got 77 degrees.
Okay.
I've got 87 on the terminals, 89.
Okay.
But the heat sink on the Soliton is at 86. This Soliton is at 97.
How is that one hotter?
I wonder. Particularly since it gets
The coldest water.
the coldest water.
Yeah.
That's a little interesting. Yeah, I'm reading 97 Fahrenheit. Well, 91, 94. This one's high 80s, 87, 89. My motor case temperature is 117 degrees Fahrenheit. This motor is 112.
Okay.
Now I can shoot through this hole into the interior of the motor and get a little higher value. There's 170, 125. This one I'm seeing 133, 134,
And what was the first one?
129.
Okay.
Yeah, 128, 129 is my highest.
Okay.
This is 133, 132.
So it kind of seems our middle motor there is trying to put up a little bit more than that front one.
It might be. There might be a little imbalance there.
Okay.
But we're running good cooling air, and it's coming out warm,
Uh-huh.
the air. And the case is actually quite cool, merely body temperature.
Okay.
But that's warm air, and that's our heat.
Yeah, how's that thing doing? Oh, you know what? We're getting pretty hot on the
We
trans.
are at
Yeah.
200 on the transmission.
Yeah, let's go ahead and back that off.
So let's crank that down. That may be a limiting thing. I think we're going to have to go ahead and put on a cooler on the transmission.
Well, if when we get torque converter lockup, that eliminates probably 70% of the heat
Yeah.
without that torque converter slipping. But yeah, we're getting warm. It's nowhere near overheating for that tranny, but it's definitely getting warm.
And we're
Well, I
at
guess we're
idle
kinda close,
in
but-
fourth. Now I can change the load by going to third, but my solar time's way out ahead of it. There's first.
Okay.
It's maintaining very nicely.
Okay. Yeah, we should probably let that cool off.
So we're going to continue experimenting with the bench and trying to come up with different things we can measure. We'll be adding some current measurement and that sort of thing to it as we go.
Uh-huh.
But we can try out different configurations. And at this point, he's kind of tuning up the transmission. A little bit of waste effort because right now we're not going to use that transmission.
Trying to calibrate our shift points for the bench.
But I can be brought around on that. And
Okay.
this, I'm starting to see how this would be an advantage to have automatic shift points. That, we can still go either way. And it'll be a good learning experience for both
sure.
of us. So
For sure.
we'll continue that. Let's shut that down. I've still got those blowers going. Whew. Let's shut them off.
Okay.
I think we're in pretty good shape temperature-wise. So they've heard enough of our blower noise. But that's the bench. It's basically working. Our concept of generating power back into the batteries to put a significant load is simply off scale. We're not putting enough load on it to really put a load on our motors.
Yeah.
And so we have to get up pretty high RPM in order to do that. Maybe we'll stick a coil of wire in a bucket of water or something and try that.
Make some tea.
Make some tea.
Make some tea with it.
And see if that'll increase it. But and you can go ahead and continue playing with the transmission parameters.
Okay.
And see if you can get that to act like a normal transmission for
Okay,
us.
all right.
And we'll go from there. But so good stuff. I particularly liked your artistic welding. But let's try it my way and use a little aluminum this time.
All right.
And see if you can come up with something a little more structurally. I'm concerned because of the weight of these Garretts.
Yeah.
and they're 5 or 6 pounds a piece, but we're gonna go down the road waving them
rocking
around.
around a little bit. Yeah.
If they break loose in there, one, they're into my power cables, and but worse, I lose cooling air to my motors and maybe don't know it.
Yeah.
And so we need to be structurally sound
Okay.
on that shroud,
Okay.
and with some system with probably a screw that goes all the way through both sides, not the auto perforantes, to secure it. And let's see what we can come up with there.
Sounds good.
All righty.
EVNetics Electric Vehicle Systems presents the Soliton 1 controller. 1,000 amps of continuous power at up to 340 volts. Enough power to drive your dream car while automatically protecting your precious battery pack. Built-in contactors and pre-charge circuit reduces parts count. Each Soliton 1 controller undergoes rigorous dynamometer qualification. An easy-to-use web interface configuration with real-time data logger through an Ethernet connection. The only controller with programmable idle function ideal for automatic transmissions. Liquid cooling for high power operation. EVNetics Soliton 1. Very dangerous, very high voltage.
Do you remember our little buddies from Husel, Norway?
From Norway, yes. Yeah,
They were on a round-the-world trip. Nina Rasmussen and Hal
Hal, yeah. I know.
in a Nissan Qashqai converted by a company called A Future.
Yes.
I'm not too sure A Future still exists.
Okay.
However, and it's because they had 2 fires.
Yeah, I remember the one on the ship that almost burned the ship
Yes,
up, and another
the
one.
ferry
Yeah.
burn up, but they had another one
Oh,
as well.
man.
And we have declared that a BMS incident,
Okay.
a very high heat thing that can only happen through overcharging. We examined the car. It had 2 bruises, but they were not used in automatic mode. They were in CAN bus mode under the direction of a BMS called REAP Systems.
Right.
And I don't have any doubt in my mind actually what happened in both cases. But combustion forensics being what they are,
Yes.
you can't prove anything.
No.
I received an email from a Dr. Dennis Dorfel, who is the principal behind REAP Systems,
Oh.
wanting to know what information I had, and introducing himself, and asking what information I had, and could I prove it.
Okay.
And of course, it's rare to be able to prove anything with a fire. This perfect smoking gun,
Right.
it normally goes
Everything's
up
burned
in the
up.
fire.
Yeah, exactly.
But it matches basically a scenario that we have seen repeated a number of times. One is you can get fires in electric cars a lot of different ways, but they're usually little fires.
Yeah.
These fires come from a very intense heat that totally destroys the car, burns the tires off of it, melts the glass in the windows, and
Yeah.
a good part of the metal to slag.
It's pretty serious. Yeah.
And that's the first thing I look for is evidence of intense heat. Second, I want to hear about unattended charging. Mm-hmm. It's got to be on a charger. Nobody's standing there and watching it. I've never heard of one of these with that scenario.
No. Right. Yeah, if you're standing around monitoring it.
And it's usually unattended charging. And the other thing, I tried to find some evidence that it's been charging for some time when the fire's discovered.
Okay. Yep.
End
Yep.
of charge type thing.
Right.
And you'll see that the fire breaks out in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah. You
They
plugged it in. It's been
plugged
there
it
for
in
a while.
at 8 or 9 o'clock,
Yep,
and
it's
it
been there.
breaks out at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
The car should have already been charged.
Right.
Instead, it's on fire.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good sign and I have played with these batteries and have personally melted numerous of them myself. Some on purpose, and some not.
A couple on accident, yeah. Oops.
And so I've got a pretty good handle of what that looks like and what causes it.
Right.
You cannot discharge one of these cells to make this happen.
No. No.
They do not. They are utterly robust and totally safe in their normal operating range. But you can overcharge them.
Oh, yes.
Maybe I should talk about that a little bit. There's still some confusion about this charge process. And I keep getting messages from people about float charging. Do not float charge a lithium cell ever. The procedure on the spec sheet, people are fixated on the voltage, and the voltage is problematical in itself. And I'm going to say something so totally incendiary that it may start a fire here in a minute. But what they give you with the spec sheet is a charge procedure. There is no way to detect the end of a charge process without a 12 or 15 hour wait to see what the voltage is.
See what the voltage is, yeah.
And it has to bleed off of the diffusion charge or the surface
charge, yeah, right.
Before you can do that.
Yeah.
And so what they give you is a procedure, and the procedure goes like this. If you charge at this current rate, to this voltage, and then you hold that voltage until the current diminishes to this point, which is typically 0.05 C, a couple amps or 3 amps. We declare it fully charged.
Fully charged, yeah.
And that's as close as we can get you with a procedure. The voltage you're charging it to and holding has nothing to do with the voltage of the cell. This is a description of how you get there. But we've got some people who are then holding it at 200 or 300 milliamps further and continue to put energy in the cell.
Okay.
That's not good. You're
good.
overcharging the battery. You're still putting energy in after we've declared it fully charged, and it will take it slowly.
Yep.
But that's not a good thing. That has nothing to do with the REAP systems thing, but it does have something to do with something else. Dr. Dorfel sent me this email message, and I would say we corresponded, but he went away rather quickly. I outlined these criteria and the number of incidents we have found with this, including the link volt and several others, and that until I find some evidence to the contrary, that is the fire mode of lithium iron phosphate cells, and so far it's been entirely a function of battery management system.
Battery management.
You could do this without a battery management system with a really bad charger, or by doing it manually, or something like this float charging concept, which there is no such thing with a lithium cell. Don't go there. So that kind of ended the conversation.
Okay.
He's not come back with a whole lot. I thought we were sharing, and then he was going to give me what he knew, but that didn't happen. He just went away. But I did get to looking into him a little bit, and he's a fascinating guy. He's been playing with these batteries and is quite knowledgeable about them for some time. And I'm going to refer you to his doctoral thesis, University of Southampton, Faculty of Engineering Science and Mathematics, School of Engineering Sciences, Testing and Characterization of Large High-Energy Lithium-Ion Batteries for Electric and Hybrid Electric Vehicles by Dennis Dorfel.
Okay.
Thesis for degree of Doctor of Philosophy, March 2007. Couple hundred pages. Not terribly well written, but not bad. And he does do a number of things, and he's been testing these batteries and has papers going back to 2003 on.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about lithium, manganese, and so forth, on the prismatic Thunder Sky
Like we're
batteries.
using, yeah, right.
Some of the early ones, obviously. But he does a number of things in here, and one of them that I found fascinating was kind of a complete diagrammatical debunk of the Puchert's
Of the Puchert effect, yeah.
on lithium-ion cells, which I've known for some time that if there is any, it's very little. But he pretty much pins it down to not anything.
Not at all, yeah.
The Puchert's effect is if you take a 100 amp hour lead acid battery, you'll get 100 amp hours out of it if you discharge it at a 20 amp hour rate or 20 hour rate. If you discharge the same battery at 5 hour rate, you won't get that.
Right.
You'll get a lesser amount of energy, and if you drive around in a car for an hour, you'll get quite a bit less.
Right, okay.
That does not apply to lithium cells. They do not have that. But he also covers some of the other problems that are nickel metal hydride cells have a mild memory effect like a nickel cadmium, where it's more pronounced, but they also have a little voltage hysteresis problem that comes up. Of course, the lead acid cells sulfate, and
Right.
so you can't leave them, you can't do partial charges really. You need to fully charge them all the time,
Okay.
and overcharge them. And none of that applies to lithium cells, and he's got quite a document. I'm going to put a link to it up on the blog. I think you'll find it fascinating, if fairly heavyweight reading. But one of the things he gets wrapped around the axle on in his test procedures is this problem of voltage.
Okay.
In order to do definitive testing, he wants to get true open circuit voltage of the cell. Well, it takes a day after you've done anything. If you discharge it at all, if you charge it at all, then to get a true open circuit voltage, it takes 12, 25 hours, something like
Let
that
it
to
sit.
get there. The incendiary thing I'm going to say is that after 40 years in the field, I actually do not believe in voltage. I think it's a myth. I think Ohm had it wrong. It's a handy thing to describe how we can induce current flow and how we can make it flow harder or weaker. And I believe in current flow and resistance.
Sure.
Too many anomalies over too many years with voltage. It just doesn't really exist.
Okay. There you go.
Everything you measure with, and voltage is actually our handiest measurement that we have.
Yes.
We can only really measure resistance and current indirectly by voltage.
By voltage, yeah.
That's why I know it doesn't exist. So all voltages are apparent, and when you get into battery chemistry, they're only apparent. And so we use procedures like this to get to certain points. But when you I can put 600 volts across any battery pack and immediately measure 300 volts. Why is that?
Yeah, why is that?
Because I'm putting the current in it. And Ohm's law is very strict and absolutely true, but I'm not sure that the voltage isn't only always an apparent manifestation of resistance and current, which are real world things. And so, but it was interesting to see him try to develop test procedures around a true voltage. There isn't any true voltages. We can only deal with apparent voltages, and if you look deeply enough into almost any voltage you measure, it's not that. It's something else. And so that will
There
get
we
me
go.
some reader mail.
There you go, guys.
Particularly from the doctors of philosophy. They're going to go berserk on this. And I'll be little and ugly, and my mother dresses me funny again. But that's my sort of mystical explanation of, and it is almost purely philosophical. It's a practical matter. That is what we measure all the time. We don't measure resistance or current directly. It's always a voltage manifestation. That's all we can measure. I'll post this, and you can get a copy of that on the blog. Speaking of the blog, last week we mentioned in passing and I'm amazed at what's going on with this. They have suggested everything, 700 versions of how I can be safe.
Yes, we always hear about that.
I hear about my production values of the videos, my shoes, my dress. I should lose some weight, quit smoking Camels, and probably not drink. And it's.
Oh my God, then what will we do?
I get all kinds of suggestions. They never mentioned they wanted a convention.
I can't believe this, man.
We
This
did
is crazy.
conventions for 9 years. We're
Yeah.
really good at it. We
Yeah.
changed the way they do conventions.
Yeah, we did some pretty good shows.
And it's a very strange thing. Here I am preternaturally and competent to do video, and that's what I'm trying to do. But we do know how to do conventions. I just mentioned that we'd get 20 people together in the fall last week.
Yeah, right. No big announcement.
I'm not getting any declines. George Hamstra is quite enthusiastic about coming and speaking at this.
Right.
He's putting the squeeze on Ryan Baum, who is NetGain Drives.
Right.
What's that? EV Source or EV?
Easy EV Source, I believe. Yeah.
And he's developed the Drive system. Their controller.
Their controller. Yeah.
And so he's in. Wayne Alexander called looking for a air conditioning compressor. The EV Blue.
Yeah,
Wayne
yeah,
has
yeah.
actually done 140 conversions
Yeah.
or something. He's got a couple guys wanting him to do lithium ion. He's going to do them without a BMS, but he needs an air conditioning compressor.
Okay.
So I
Well, we
was
know where you can get
chatting
some
with
air
him. I said,
conditioning.
Wayne, why don't you come? All these guys that are doing a conversion have in the back of their mind doing a second one. And it's a small leap from there to running a conversion shop. I think all of them are toying with it. Why don't you come talk to them about what reality Vail looks like there? And he instantly said, yep, I'll come. I said, bring a car. Oh, okay.
All right, Wayne.
I ran this by the Evnetics guys. They're trying to get this off the ground. They're not really, all of them kind of have day jobs and stuff. I don't think they realize how well they've done with that solar.
That's a great product.
It's
yeah.
a good component, and
Yeah.
it's going to change conversions, and they're going to do great. But they're kind of on pins and needles about that. And, kind of got rolled over by some vendors on their IGBTs and the usual problems.
The normal stuff. Yeah.
Everybody wants to have a business. Once you have one, there's some housekeeping that goes with it.
Yeah.
Not every day is a great day on the internet. I ran this by Sebastian and Jeffrey, and Sebastian is coming.
Okay, great.
And looks like bringing a Jaguar XK8,
XJ8, yeah.
that they have converted, if not that one, a Porsche late model.
All right.
That they've
Wow.
done. They have a sort of a sister company that does conversions.
They
down in St.
do, yeah, in
Petersburg.
St. Petersburg, yeah.
In Tampa, and they started out doing like the new VW Beetle and stuff, and they're doing pretty well with it. I think they're doing good builds. I don't know what it's like as a business. And so he's going to bring a car and
Cool.
going to come talk about controller design choices in general, and then hopefully a second session on sort of stupid pet tricks you can do with your Soliton 1, since they don't bother to write a manual.
Yeah, might as well let them tell some guys, huh?
If they'd be really, really nice to me, I might write them a manual.
Oh,
I
yeah,
did
you used to do
for
that.
20
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
They've got some features laying all over the ground that I have to drag out of them because
That are pretty cool
they don't
features.
have time to write
Yeah.
it in the book. And it's a little hard for me to discover them by randomly pressing buttons.
Yeah.
So he's coming, and so this is shaping up. The guy who originally suggested this as a build school or something is Eric Chris. Eric is a very interesting guy. He teaches down at the University of Miami, and always had several careers and done pretty well with them. For our purposes, he has a website called Chris Motors, and he is the definitive wiki and I mean step by step with photographs of how to do a, I always get them, who does the GTM and the Cobra? Factory
5.
Factory 5 Cobra.
Yes. Okay.
And
yeah.
he has kind of the definitive wiki step by step how to do that.
How to build
and
a Cobra.
And is kind of secretly working on one to do the special edition Speedster.
Okay.
And the guy is great at documenting things. I've given him a bunch of our stuff, and he's putting it together. You may know him as the producer of the famous superhero Carbon Footprint.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Carbon footprint. Yeah, we showed him
And
that.
There was
Yeah.
Carbon Footprint, and what was the other one?
Something green. Green with envy?
Green
or
Envy.
Green envy, yeah.
And Carbon Footprint, the two superheroes.
That's right.
My name is Green Envy, a regular guy kind of superhero in search of a really good electric car. And this is Carbon Footprint.
I am really pissed off because we have not made any progress so far in our quest for a really good electric car. What are we doing on this train?
We are going to Missouri to attend the first electric vehicle conversion convention, which can be shortened to EVCCON. If you cannot remember the whole name, remember EVCON.
With a name like that, who could resist? Is this going to be like our trip to Woodstock back in 1969?
Not exactly. Woodstock was a music festival that turned into a muddy expression of social change. This convention will have less music but a lot more wine as well as classes on how to build electric cars.
So will the Chevy Volt, the car that the U.S. government helped build with a bailout of $50 billion, going to be at the convention to show that America is still leading the way?
Not exactly. General Motors only sold 928 Volts through February 2011, and most of the sales were in California.
California is where my mother, Mother Nature, has a second home. Unfortunately, her mortgage is underwater. Anyway, why don't we just take this train to California and watch all the Chevy Volts that live there?
Because the Chevy Volt is not really an electric car. It is a gasoline engine plus some expensive batteries.
Do you mean that the U.S. government spent $50 billion and did not even get a real electric car?
Yes. I know that is a disappointment to you. But that is why we must go to Missouri. We cannot rely on the government.
So we are going to Missouri because the government cannot get the big car companies to build really good electric cars even if they give them $50 billion.
Correct. We must do it ourselves. That is why a convention of builders is so important.
Okay, I understand. I am glad we are on this train. Even if it is an Amtrak government train, at least it is electric. I will call Mother Nature and tell her to lay off Missouri until after the convention.
I know that Jack and Brain at EVTV will appreciate that. It is time to make our own electric cars. This EVCON gathering will point the way.
But he suggested we do this, so I kind of ran it by George and a couple other people. I expected, 15, 20 people.
Well, that's what we were saying,
That's
20
been
people, yeah.
The first week. The Illuminati X Prize team is coming and bringing seven from Illinois. Dwayne Ball, who did this, he and Scott Smith did the Spider.
They did the
and
Spider
we bought
that
it
we
from
have,
him.
yes.
He called me every day on this car, and then he went to sell it. I kind of felt like I didn't want it out of the family.
That's right, one of the family, yeah.
I felt like I'd been part of the build.
That's right.
Actually, I was. He has taken delivery of a Chuck Beck, the new special editions product, a replica of the Porsche 904.
Yeah, that when we were out there, that's a pretty cool looking car.
And he's putting an 11-inch and a Soliton in that. And it's going to
Be a heck of a vehicle.
We've
Yep.
seen this car, actually.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so I sent Dwayne an email message. And he's all the way in New York.
Yes.
Dwayne, I'd
Running
like
his
you
business.
and Scott to come and bring the 904. Guess what the reply was?
We'll think about it.
No. Yes, we'll be there.
We'll be there.
And,
All right, man.
and nothing further.
It's amazing. Oh,
I
man.
expected to have to explain to him, everything about, Nope, we'll be there. And then Simon Wilkinson, from New Zealand,
Yes.
said he's coming. He can't bring the car.
That would be a heck of an expense. Yeah.
And Tim Cavalier with the BMW Z3
Yeah.
is
Yep.
going to come. He has to look and see what it costs to
To ship the car out.
ship
Yeah.
the car. And so, it's just, I'm not getting any naysayers to this at all. I think they've been
amazing.
wanting a convention, and I wasn't paying attention. They might have had one without.
Without us even knowing.
Wouldn't that be something? If they had one and I wasn't
Yeah,
invited.
that's right.
So
Well, there might be some.
we put up an announcement this week. What we're shooting at right now, and it's all graven in jello, and we're already running into some issues. If it did get bigger, we kind of need some backup from some of the local
different
Cape
space, yeah.
facilities. So we may have to move this a week one direction or the other. September here in Cape Girardeau is extremely pretty. It's just
Yeah, it really
beautiful.
is. Yep.
And
Beautiful.
so we're shooting for September 21st to the 25th. We'll have arrivals on Wednesday, a reception Wednesday evening, classes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, a little trip to wine country on Sunday for the late departures, and most people would depart on Sunday.
Yep, exactly.
Big wine dinner on Saturday night. We'll have a barbecue bonfire in my house overlooking the river and so forth. Evening entertainments and dinners, but mostly pretty hardcore classes and sessions during the day. If they're bringing all these cars, we may have to set aside some time and have a car show, open it up to the public, and let people come in and see these cars.
It'd be really cool. Yeah.
We're adding a bunch of electrical service here so we can charge some.
Vehicles, yes.
That's going to be pricey. We've set the pricing at $595 for the event. We're going to discount that to $400 for
Right.
those that register by 1st of July, would you think?
Yeah, for a September event, I think 1st of July would be fine. Yep.
And I'm
So
gonna.
400?
I'm kind of engaged with this bringing in the cars thing. Dwayne's 904
like it, yeah.
and that Jaguar.
Uh-huh.
I bought a Jaguar from Brian a few years ago during one of his various divorces. It's a nice car. It's still out in
It's still
Denver.
sitting out there, yeah.
That could be converted,
Yeah.
What was that? An XJ6?
XJR supercharged.
XJR
Yeah.
supercharged.
Yeah.
And big 6-cylinder.
Yep.
But we're going to have some nice cars here.
I think so. Yep,
But
wait a
shipping
second.
a car is quite an expense, but it would make, boy, it'd be great if we had a big pile of cars and had everybody do 20 minutes on their build and how they did it and what some of the features are, and just kind of go through a dozen cars or so. That'd be
amazing. Yeah.
High velocity info.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Drinking from the fire hose there. And so, I want to encourage that, but it is an expense. So I think we're going to either waive it or make it, instead of $595, $5.95.
Okay. We'll just do
If they bring a car.
the 1,000,000% discount.
Right, the 1,000,000% discount. If they bring a car, now that's going to have to be a full-size car, not a motor scooter, skateboard, bicycle, lawnmower, and I don't want to see any lead. We're about lithium batteries. Just leave the lead home. Sorry. Yeah, that's just. I'm
What
sorry.
else would you do? Yeah.
That's going to be the thing. I put a little thing on the blog, sort of a trial
yeah, a
balloon.
couple days ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what the thing would be like. Would you believe somebody has already gotten on the website and registered himself?
We don't have a registration form.
No, we don't have a form. We don't have any way of doing any of this thing.
Can't even download a brochure.
Nick Smith is officially our first paid registrant for the
Congratulations, Nick.
from New Zealand.
Oh, New Zealand.
Yes, he got on, and he's got some sort of secret stuff going on that he's hoping to have ready by then.
All right.
He's coming from New Zealand, and he got on the website, punched the PayPal donate button, typed in $400, and gave me all
And
his
signed himself
contact
up.
information, signed himself up. 44 minutes after I posted the blog entry.
Oh my God. Yeah, this is going to be crazy, isn't it?
It's already out of control.
It really is. We've
And
lost control of it.
Yeah, we've lost control. We don't even have anything up on the web about it yet. But I think it's going to be quite an event. We learned years ago from the internet service provider crowd,
Yeah.
BBS guys, that what happens is it's not that we put on such a great show. We kind of put on the facilities and get out of the way.
Yeah, let them have a show.
You spend most of your time explaining yourself. This is what happened with the techies that were building the internet. And it's, you don't realize how tiresome it is. You get in a room with a bunch of other guys that think the same way and have the same common language, and the release is almost emotional.
Yeah.
And if you can get 20 or 30 of them, never mind 200 or 300, it gets to be sort of a life changer.
It is, yeah.
You're all of a sudden in a room full of high-powereds who are all talking the stuff you talk all the
that
time.
you think,
Except
you
you don't
live
have
and
to
breathe.
explain anything, and the
Right.
bandwidth goes up, like 1,000%. And all of a sudden, you're talking to other guys that think and talk just like you do,
Yeah.
instead of trying to explain it to people that think you're weird.
Right. Yep. Yeah, the contacts you
Yeah.
make and the things you learn are just amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then you go away and you're kind of connected to people in
Yeah.
a very different way. You won't be flaming them quite so hard in the forums when you know you're going to see them.
Especially when you
every
know what
year
they
at the
look like,
convention.
and they're coming back.
And so we've been to this rodeo
Yeah.
before. It's a pretty neat thing. So we're going to sort of declare it. Provisionally it's 21st through the 25th. That could get moved a week.
Oh, it would only be a week or so either way. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to get a facility if it got out of hand. But I would really like a fairly intimate, 50 people or something.
Yeah.
We could handle that here in the shop.
So we were going to handle that
mostly,
here.
and,
Yeah.
We're going to call it the Electric Vehicle Conversion Convention, EVCCON.
EVCCON. Okay. We've used that a couple of times before.
Yeah, we had ISPCon.
Yep. You had BBSCon before that.
Would
Yep.
you believe EVCCON.com was available?
That's what I can't imagine. I mean, there's almost no domain names left anymore.
Right. No, I registered that, and
Cool.
EVCON, me and EVCON.com, and we'll try to, our now full-time web guy, Christopher Fisher, is working on a database and sign-up
Right.
form
Cool.
for it. He's been indexing. If you haven't seen this, go to our archive page. There's a index under construction link, and he's got nearly a full website up.
Yeah,
with our
which is pretty cool.
videos,
You guys ought
a
to check it out.
synopsis of the shows, an index of topics, links to the vendors, and the whole thing. And it really looks great.
Yep. He's done a great job.
I may just retire and see what he does
Let him
with the
have it,
videos. Take a couple weeks off, see if I'm needed here.
We need you.
And so we're starting to get a little bit of help, and I think this is going to be a big year. Two things are going to happen. One is this energy thing is
It's coming to a head.
I don't think it's going to come to a head. It's going to become apparent
Yeah.
to all
Yeah.
finally that there's no escape for
Yeah.
it. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not, it doesn't really matter when, it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And the other thing is there's going to be kind of an inversion, and I think you're going to see a little bit different take by the end of the year, that the OEMs and the government and so forth are not really going to be able to pull this off.
No, and didn't we see Goshen the other day?
He was on.
He was
on
at the
TV,
Davos. He was at Davos, I think.
Backtracking
Yeah.
and retrenching his position on 150,000 cars a year to
Yeah.
a slowly building
Yeah,
niche.
He backed off pretty hard.
He backed off pretty hard.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
And so I think because of the premium that you have to pay, that manufacturers of cars are going to have to occupy the very stratospheric luxury car market. The
Yeah.
Tesla Model S has possibilities. BMW could get away with something.
Right. Right now, yeah.
The VW Bulli might be interesting. Rolls-Royce, they can just do it.
Yeah, the premium on a car that expensive isn't that
Isn't
much of a
that
percentage.
Much of a percentage.
Yeah, on
You
a-
can't go down the thing.
Not now, no. Not
The
yet.
concept of inexpensive, and you guys are going to cream me for this, but the concept of inexpensive electric cars is you do it yourself and save the labor.
Mm-hmm.
And you convert a car you like.
That you want, yeah, the car you really want.
And this is what I've been saying for 3 years. It's not going to come out any different. And not
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah, not right now.
This
Nope.
I got this figured as a 10, 12-year ride.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I think so.
sure, I could be wrong. What are the chances?
I put up with this for years. He is right, though, a lot of time.
It always comes to pass. It's going to be a 10 or 12-year ride to get there.
Yeah.
And a big part of it is going to be you. The perception right now is you're marginalized by the OEMs and their blizzard of press releases.
Yeah, that's right. They're
I've
taking over the
tried to
world.
Explain to you, the quick cure for a bad press release is another press release.
Another press release, yeah.
It's paper, and it's designed to deal out fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Guess who's feeling all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt?
No, it's our audience.
Well, you would think.
Yeah.
No, it's the guys running the press
The corporations.
release mill.
Oh, man.
They are just absolutely in a
They're
panic
scared to
of
death.
fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If they
More press
don't do
releases.
something, they're going to miss
They're
the
gonna miss the
train.
whole boat,
And
yeah.
if they do something, it's going to be heroically expensive, and nobody's going to buy the cars.
Yeah, they're kind of screwed either way.
There is some fear, uncertainty, and doubt, some FUD factor out there, but it's in this case, it's the guys running the printing press of these press releases. You can get on
just
some
get
of these
PR news
blogs,
writers.
Auto Blog Green and electric cars and so forth. They simply take these press releases, regurgitate them in mass. They never run out. They can do 10 a day.
Yeah, they have plenty to do.
And reading through that, trying to find the 2 in a month
Right. Yeah.
that
really means something.
that mean anything is getting to be hard work.
Yeah.
So I predict you're more important than you think you are. And that's going to start to become apparent this year.
Well, the OEMs are out there now. They're doing stuff, and
Yeah, they're-
we'll have to see what happens. Yeah.
They're doing stuff. They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is not going to be an easy process. It's going to be done one bloody car at a time, by one guy at a time, one university team at a time, one entrepreneur at a time, and the only ones that can't really play is General Motors and Nissan and big boats that can't steer. They
big
don't have a
corporations.
right place to be. I would not be one of them.
Yeah. I mean, it was better to be Tesla in this case.
It's much better.
Yep.
It's much Tesla. You don't understand. It's a
They're not.
one-sided fight. Elon Musk owned these guys.
Yeah. No, he did the right thing.
It's how badly does he want to whoop up on them? And in which direction?
That's right.
He already owns them. He can move in 10 days to what would take them 10 months. And it's if he sells 10,000 cars, it's a huge win.
Right.
If Nissan sells 10,000 electric cars, what's that?
It's a big hit. It's a loss.
It's a bloodbath.
Yeah.
General Motors sells 10,000 cars. What's that?
Same thing. It's murder.
Well, they can always go back to the drawing board and do it over again. Tesla could do that in like 6 months. How long does it take GM?
Well, when did they have the EV1? That's a decade.
Yeah. It's not a fair fight. And I think Elon Musk, if he's a gentleman, will be gentle with him. Don't rub it in.
Just a little, Elon.
Well, I can understand why you'd want to. But once you know you can, you don't have to.
That's right.
So, anyway, we would like you to consider coming to Cape Girardeau in September and joining us for a function at the junction and a major meeting topic, EV conversions.
Yes.
And we would encourage you, in a very real financial way, to bring your car and show it.
Mm-hmm.
And the people you'll be showing it to do know what you're talking about and are very interested to see how you did it. And I would predict we're going to have in one place the most gorgeous collection of custom electric cars in the world.
I think so.
In our first year.
Yeah, the way it's going.
And we'll take it from there. So there's your invitation. We will scramble to make pages
Put a
and
sign-up
sign-up
sheet and all
sheets
that
and so forth for your use, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
For now, I'm Jack Rickard with EVTV.
And I'm Brian Noda.
See you next week.